The spaceship hummed softly as it drifted above the purple clouds of Zaphiria, a distant planet at the edge of human exploration. Inside the observation deck, Adrian, the last human crew member on this mission, stared out at the swirling skies. He had been alone for months, tasked with cataloging Zaphiria's ecosystems, and each passing day deepened the loneliness he felt. The silence of the ship was heavy, pressing against his mind in waves that made him long for a conversation, a laugh, or even the smallest sign of another human. Adrian rubbed his eyes and glanced at the console. The instruments had detected a faint life signal near the northern hemisphere, a region covered in dense, glowing forests. The signal was unusual, not like the automated flora or fauna scans he had been doing. It had a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. He hesitated. Humanity had always been cautious about first contact. Protocols demanded observation from a safe distance, yet a strange part of him yearned to see who, or what, was sending that signal. He suited up, checking the oxygen levels and scanning the terrain below. The ship's AI, Lyra, spoke with her calm, neutral tone. "Adrian, I recommend a remote survey first. Human contact is unwise without full data." "I know," Adrian replied, "but I need to see it for myself." He activated the landing sequence and soon touched down on the soft, glowing moss that covered Zaphiria's northern forests. The air was thick but breathable, scented with a sweet floral aroma that made him feel both dizzy and awake. The signal grew stronger as he walked, pulsing like a living pulse under the canopy of tall, translucent trees. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. A figure stepped into a patch of light, a humanoid form, yet unlike anything he had seen before. She was slender, her skin shimmering faintly with a pattern that resembled the constellations. Her hair floated in a gravity-defying halo, catching the bioluminescent light. Her eyes were wide and luminous, almost too bright for the dim forest, and they locked onto Adrian's with curiosity rather than fear. Adrian froze, unsure what to do. His training told him to remain cautious, yet the creature before him radiated a strange warmth. "Hello?" he said, his voice trembling slightly. The alien tilted her head, examining him. Then softly she spoke in a melodic tone. "You are alone." Adrian's heart sank at how accurate that simple statement was. "Yes," he admitted, I'm the only human here." Her eyes sparkled, a mixture of fascination and something deeper he could not name. She moved closer, her steps light and almost floating. "I am Lysara," she said. "You feel lonely?" Adrian nodded, unsure how to respond. He wanted to ask countless questions, but the words tangled in his throat. Instead, he simply looked at her. There was something about her presence that was comforting yet exhilarating, like standing on the edge of a cliff and feeling the wind urging him to jump. "I've never met your kind before," Lysara said, tilting her head as if she could see inside his mind. "You are fragile yet interesting." Adrian chuckled nervously. "Fragile? Maybe, but interesting. I hope so." Lysara's smile was subtle but full of life. "Your loneliness. It is strong. I sense it. I wish to understand it." Her words, though simple, carried a weight he hadn't expected. Most people he had known back on Earth never tried to understand loneliness. Here was a being, so different and yet so aware, acknowledging something he had tried to hide from himself for years. Over the next hour, Adrian and Lysara wandered through the glowing forest together. She showed him creatures that emitted light only when touched, plants that hummed when approached, and streams of water that flowed in colors unlike any liquid he had seen. Adrian explained small things about Earth, about human customs, and about the emptiness of being far from everyone else he had ever known. Lysara listened with rapt attention, tilting her head or extending a hand to brush against the strange flora, as though absorbing every detail physically as well as mentally. Despite the differences in language, biology, and thought, a bridge was forming between them. Adrian felt a spark of connection he hadn't felt in years, and Lysara's curiosity seemed endless. Every gesture, every glance carried more meaning than words could convey. As night fell on Zaphiria, the forest glowed brighter, the bioluminescent lifeforms reacting to the darkness above. Lysara paused at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley that shimmered with floating lights. She turned to Adrian, her eyes reflecting the luminescent panorama. "Your kind. You feel deeply. It is beautiful, though it carries sadness." Adrian swallowed hard. "It does, and sometimes it hurts." She reached out, her hand hovering near his. "Then perhaps you need a companion, someone to share your pain and joy. He hesitated, realizing how much he wanted that. But even more, he understood the danger. This was a being unlike him. The rules of first contact were clear. Trust could not come too easily. Yet, for the first time in months, he felt hope. And he wondered if hope itself could be dangerous when carried alone. Suddenly, the quiet of the night was shattered by a loud, resonating hum. Adrian stiffened. Lysara's eyes widened. From the valley below, enormous shapes began to rise. Creatures of Zaphiria, massive and luminous, moving as though responding to Lysara's presence. The life signal he had detected earlier wasn't just from her. It was part of a larger network, perhaps even a warning system. "Run," Lysara said, her melodic voice urgent. She grabbed Adrian's hand, and together they sprinted back toward the ship, the glowing creatures following them at a distance. Adrian's mind raced. Could she control them? Were they hostile? He didn't know, but he trusted her instinctively. They reached the ship just as the creatures slowed, stopping at the forest edge. Lysara glanced back, her breathing uneven but composed. "They recognize me. They do not intend harm. Not yet, but humans. They do not understand Zaphiria as I do. You must be careful." Adrian nodded, his chest tight. "I will." As they took off, ascending above the purple clouds, Adrian looked at Lysara. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a glint of something mischievous, vibrant, and almost magnetic in her eyes. He realized that he was no longer just a lonely human on a distant planet. He was part of something bigger, a connection between species, between loneliness and curiosity, between human fragility and alien wonder. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time Adrian didn't feel entirely alone, but he knew the journey was only beginning. Zaphiria was full of mysteries, and Lysara's world was far more complex than he could imagine. How could a human navigate this strange, beautiful life? And more importantly, how could he keep up with someone like her, radiant and unpredictable? The hum of the ship filled the silence as Adrian stared at the fading glow of the forest below. The loneliness hadn't vanished, but it had shifted. Now it carried possibility, a promise that even across galaxies, connections could form and hearts could find understanding in the most unexpected places. And somewhere in the depths of her alien mind, Lysara was thinking the same thing. The spaceship drifted silently above Zaphiria's northern forests, but Adrian's mind was anything but quiet. The encounter with Lysara had shaken him more than he expected. Her presence was magnetic, her curiosity endless, and her awareness of his loneliness unsettlingly precise. He had always been trained to analyze, to remain cautious, but Lysara made caution feel almost unnecessary. Yet deep down he knew he was stepping into unknown territory, both in the forest below and in his own heart. "Adrian," Lyra's calm voice echoed through the cabin. "The creatures you encountered are part of an interconnected system. They recognized Lysara as a signal source. You should exercise extreme care in the coming days." "I know," he said, gripping the console, "but I can't just sit here. I have to learn more about her world, and her." Lysara leaned against the doorway, her arms folded lightly. Her constellation-like skin shimmered faintly in the soft cabin lights. "You are determined," she said. Her tone carried amusement and curiosity. "Humans are strange, fragile and unpredictable, yet persistent. I like that." Adrian smiled nervously. "Determination is all I have left out here." He paused. "Will you show me your world?" "Really show me?" Her eyes brightened. "Yes, but you must follow my ways. Zaphiria is not Earth. The rules are different, and the dangers are real." With that, she guided him back down to the forest. The light around them seemed to pulse with her presence, the bioluminescent flora reacting as if sensing her intentions. As they walked, Lysara explained her people's connection to the planet. "Zaphiria is alive in ways your species cannot imagine," she said. "Every plant, every creature, every current in the air carries a signal. We are connected to it. We feel, we sense, we respond." Adrian listened, fascinated. "So those creatures earlier, they weren't attacking us?" "No," Lysara said, shaking her head. "They were curious, testing. But if you humans interfere, the planet reacts defensively. You must be careful." Hours passed as they traversed the glowing forest. Adrian watched in awe as Lysara communicated with creatures using a combination of gestures and melodic hums. Small, luminous animals approached her without fear, and even the massive beings from the valley earlier seemed to recognize her as a guide rather than a threat. "You are connected?" Adrian said, unable to hide his amazement. "How can one person do that?" "It is not one person," Lysera replied softly. "It is my species' bond with Zaphiria. But you have a curiosity that is rare. I can sense your willingness to understand. That is why I trust you." Adrian felt a warmth in her words, but also a weight. Trust was rare even among humans. And here, in a place where every signal carried meaning, it seemed even more significant. As they approached a crystal-clear river that glowed faintly under Zaphiria's twin moons, Lysera stopped. "We will rest here," she said. "The river is safe. It feeds from deep within the planet. It can heal minor fatigue or discomfort, not like your earth medicines, but it works." Adrian knelt beside the water, letting the faintly warm liquid flow over his hands. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Lysera crouched beside him, her eyes reflecting the river's glow. "Beauty is everywhere here if you choose to see it, but you humans often miss it, lost in noise and routine." He smiled, feeling a pang of guilt. She was right. Earth had been noisy, crowded, chaotic, and he had been lonely even in the midst of millions. Here in Zaphiria, he felt clarity but also vulnerability. "I don't know how to explain it," he said. "I've never felt this way before. Not with anyone." Lysera tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Feelings are complex, human. But I feel them too. Curiosity, interest, concern for you. These are real. You must understand that my kind, we do not lie about emotion." The words struck him. There was an honesty in her voice, a purity he had almost forgotten existed in the universe. Adrian realized he wanted to be honest too, but the fear of misunderstanding kept him silent. Suddenly, the river's glow intensified, and the water began to ripple unnaturally. From beneath the surface, a translucent creature emerged. It had long, flowing tendrils and eyes that glowed like molten silver. Adrian froze, instinctively reaching for his equipment. Lysera held up a hand. "Do not be afraid. It is a river guardian. It watches, protects, ensures balance. It senses your presence, and approves for now." The creature drifted around them, brushing the water's surface with a gentle hum that resonated in Adrian's chest. He felt a deep connection, almost like the river itself was speaking to him. "Your world is alive," he whispered, awestruck. "It is," Lysera said, her hand brushing his shoulder lightly. "But alive does not mean safe. Zaphiria has many guardians. Curiosity is welcome, but recklessness is punished." The warning was clear, yet Adrian felt emboldened. He wanted to learn, to explore, to understand this alien life fully, and more than that, he wanted to stay close to Lysera, to share in her world, even if it meant risking the unknown. For the next several days, they traveled deeper into the forests. Adrian began to notice subtle changes in himself. His human limitations, the fear, the loneliness, the impatience began to shift. Lysera taught him how to sense patterns in the flora, how to follow signals in the air, and how to interpret the responses of creatures to their presence. Slowly, he learned to see Zaphiria not as a landscape, but as a living network of life. One evening, under the glow of a field of luminous flowers, Lysera paused. "You are learning quickly," she said, almost approvingly. "But there is more than observation. You must understand emotion, connection. Curiosity alone is not enough." Adrian looked at her, realizing the lesson was as much about her as it was about the planet. "You mean me? Our connection?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, you are different, Adrian. Not like the others. You see, you feel, and I feel it too. This is rare for your kind." He felt a sudden rush of warmth, not just admiration for her abilities, but a deep human desire for companionship, for understanding, for something beyond survival. Lysera, in her radiant alien way, offered all of that, without expectation, without pretense, simply with presence. But as he reached out to touch her hand, a sudden vibration shivered through the ground. The forest seemed to quiver, the luminous plants swaying unnaturally. Adrian's heart leapt. "What is that?" Lysera's expression shifted. "Trouble. Something is approaching. Not from Zaphiria." From the shadows of the towering trees, mechanical shapes emerged, sleek metallic drones hovering with precision, their lights cutting through the forest like cold blades. Adrian instinctively raised his scanner, but even without analysis he could tell they were human-made. Someone had tracked him. Someone had followed him to this distant planet. They are dangerous, Lysara said, her voice tight. Your kind. They do not understand. They will try to control, to exploit. Adrian's stomach dropped. He had thought loneliness was his greatest challenge. Now the threat of his own species invading this world, this connection he had just begun to form, pressed down like a physical weight. Then we fight? He asked, voice steady despite the fear. Lysara's eyes glimmered with determination. We survive. We hide. And you? You must learn quickly. Zaphiria will protect those who respect it. But humans bring chaos. As the first drones advanced, the forest seemed to respond. The glowing flora intensified, the river's current surged, and the creatures that had once watched from a distance now moved in protective formations. Adrian realized with awe that this planet and Lysara's people were not defenseless. Yet he also knew that his own knowledge, instincts, and human ingenuity would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. Standing beside Lysara, Adrian felt a surge of determination. The loneliness he had carried for months had transformed. Now it was paired with purpose, a reason to fight, to protect, and to learn. Zaphiria was beautiful, dangerous, and alive, and he would no longer stand as a mere observer. He would step into the heart of this world, alongside the alien girl who had already awakened something inside him. He thought long dead. And as the drones drew closer, he realized one undeniable truth. This was only the beginning. The metallic drones hovered above the forest, their lights cutting harshly through Zaphiria's gentle glow. Adrian's heart pounded, but beside him Lysara stood calm, her radiant form shimmering like a beacon of light. The alien girl's connection to the planet pulsed visibly, as if she were drawing strength from the living world around her. Adrian knew he had never witnessed anything like it. They will not stop, Lysara said, her melodic voice tight with focus. Humans come with plans, with machines. But Zaphiria, it protects. Adrian nodded, gripping his scanner and tools. Then we protect it, and ourselves. With a subtle gesture, Lysara extended her arms, and the bioluminescent plants around them responded instantly. Vines rose, twisting into barriers, and flowers opened wide, releasing a soft, luminescent mist. The drones slowed, their sensors scanning, confused by the sudden living barricade. This planet listens to you, Adrian whispered, awestruck. Yes, Lysara replied. I am part of it. But we must act carefully. Too much aggression, and it will fight back indiscriminately. Adrian quickly realized that their strength lay not in weapons but in understanding the world itself. With Lysara guiding him, he learned to observe patterns in the drones' movements and predict their attacks. Each small adjustment in the environment, each hum from Lysara, caused the machines to hesitate, their mechanical precision faltering in the face of a living, responsive ecosystem. Suddenly, one drone broke formation and surged toward them. Adrian acted instinctively, grabbing a floating piece of metallic debris from the forest floor and hurling it with surprising accuracy. It hit the drone's sensor and sparks flew. The machine wobbled, giving them a small window. Quickly, Lysara urged. She touched a nearby tree and the ground trembled as roots shot upward. Wrapping around another approaching drone, the machine struggled, unable to break free from the living restraints. Adrian marveled at how seamlessly Lysara controlled the environment, not with force but with precise influence and intuition. As the battle unfolded, Adrian felt a surge of pride in his human ingenuity. He coordinated with Lysara, using his knowledge of machines to exploit their weaknesses while she manipulated the forest. Together they formed a team that neither species alone could have managed. Minutes stretched like hours, and finally, the drones began to retreat, their systems malfunctioning from repeated interference. They emitted sharp warning signals as they lifted off, disappearing into the night sky. Adrian exhaled, a mix of relief and exhilaration washing over him. We did it, he said, his voice trembling. Lysara turned to him, her glowing eyes softening. Yes, but this is only the beginning. Humans will return. They are curious, relentless, careless. You must remember that, Adrian. He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Zaphiria was beautiful, alive, and full of wonder, but it was fragile, vulnerable to the recklessness of those who did not respect its life. As the forest settled back into its natural rhythm, Lysara led him deeper into a valley filled with crystalline trees. The light from the crystals reflected in 1,000 colors, bathing them in a radiant glow. Adrian felt his tension melt, replaced with awe and wonder. "Why do you show me this?" he asked softly. "Because you are different," Lysera said. "You see, you feel. You learn. Most humans cannot. They touch, they take, they destroy without understanding. You are curious in the way the planet respects." Adrian's chest swelled with emotion. In all his years of exploration, he had never been acknowledged like this. Not for his skill, not for his knowledge, but for his ability to understand, to feel, and to connect. "Thank you," he whispered. Lysera smiled faintly, and for a moment, silence enveloped them, not tense but peaceful. The kind of silence that only comes from being completely present, from standing in a world so alive that all trivial thoughts fade away. Over the next days, Adrian continued to learn. Lysera taught him the language of the forest, how every rustle, hum, and shimmer carried meaning. He learned to sense signals, predict the movements of creatures, and even communicate subtle ideas with only gestures and tone. Their bond deepened not through words but through understanding, trust, and shared experience. One evening, as twin moons rose over the horizon, Adrian and Lysera stood atop a cliff overlooking the northern valley. The air was crisp, filled with the gentle hum of life. Adrian felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and fear. He had never imagined a connection like this, between species, between worlds, between hearts. "Lysera," he began hesitantly, I don't know how to say this, but being with you, with your world, it makes me feel alive again. I'm not lonely anymore." Her eyes softened, reflecting the moons above. "Loneliness is not easily erased, human. But connection, understanding, it can heal parts of you you thought were lost. And I feel the same. You are important, not only to yourself but to Zaphiria." The weight of her words settled over him. In her presence, he realized that survival wasn't just about life or safety. It was about sharing experience, emotion, and understanding. Zaphiria had offered him more than adventure. It had given him connection. As the moons climbed higher, the distant hum of drones reminded them that the outside world was never far. But Adrian no longer felt fear. He had learned through Lysera and the living planet that curiosity, empathy, and courage could overcome the greatest challenges, even those brought by his own species. A sudden shimmer caught his eye. From the river valley, the river guardians emerged, their translucent forms floating gracefully toward them. Adrian watched, captivated as they moved with the rhythm of Zaphiria itself. Lysera extended her hands and the guardians circled them, a protective dance that symbolized acceptance and unity. "They accept you," she said. "Not fully, but they recognize your intentions. You belong here, if you choose to respect this world." Adrian knelt, letting the river guardian's glow wash over his hands. "I will respect it," he promised. "And I will protect it. And I want to stay. With you. With Zaphiria." Lysera's eyes reflected joy, relief, and something Adrian couldn't quite name, perhaps pride, or perhaps the same connection that had awakened in him. She reached out and their hands met, human and alien, warmth and radiance merging. "You will have challenges," Lysera said softly. "Your species will return. Curiosity can bring danger. But together, we can face it." Adrian smiled, feeling a surge of determination. "Then we face it together." Over the following weeks, Adrian became a part of Zaphiria's living network. He explored deeper forests, learned to communicate with creatures, and even influenced minor environmental changes under Lysera's guidance. Humans might return one day, but now he had the knowledge, skills, and bond with Lysera and the planet to stand against any threat. And more than that, he had something he never thought he would feel again, a sense of belonging. The loneliness that had haunted him for months, the ache of being the last human, was replaced by purpose, connection, and trust. One evening, as the twin moons reflected on the crystalline river, Adrian and Lysera sat side by side. He marveled at the alien girl, radiant, curious, and full of life. He thought of her first words, how she had sensed his loneliness and reached toward it with understanding. And he realized something profound. Sometimes, the most extraordinary discoveries aren't about planets or technology, but about hearts, connections, and the courage to be vulnerable. Lysera turned toward him, a faint smile curving her lips. "You are no longer lonely," she said. "I'm not," Adrian replied. Not with you, not here. Not anywhere in this universe. And as the stars stretched endlessly above, a human and an alien, separated by biology yet united by curiosity, trust and understanding, looked forward to the challenges ahead. Not as lonely explorers, but as companions, as friends, as something extraordinary in the vast, living galaxy. Zaphiria pulsed beneath them, alive and protective. And somewhere deep in its glowing heart, the planet seemed to hum in agreement. Humanity, in its fragility and persistence, could belong, even on the most alien of worlds.